There was a big debate on whether or not the tank had its century in the limelight and is now becoming outdated and an unnecessary part of modern warfare. In this video we'll talk about whether or not the tanks have become obsolete in modern warfare, we'll say a few words about the history of the first tanks and their introduction to military strategy, we'll also discuss whether the claims that tanks have been overrun by time are correct or if it's just a loose conclusion, and at the end we'll talk about where tanks are used today and what future awaits these iron beauties.
Hello, I hope you're having a great day. I'm Alex Garnett and welcome to the Armourgeddon channel. If you like tanks and military history, be sure to like and subscribe.
Tanks have become an ambiguous sight on the battlefield, an embodiment of military might and firepower. These armoured fighting vehicles have come a long way since their inception during the First World War. They have definitely changed the course of history and shaped the way wars are fought.
The origins of tanks can be traced back to the trenches of the First World War. The war had become a stalemate with both sides entrenched in their positions, unable to break through to the other side. The traditional methods of warfare, such as cavalry charges and infantry assaults, were proving to be ineffective in the face of the machine gun.
The British came up with the idea of an armoured vehicle that could cross the no man's land and break through the enemy lines. They began experimenting with various designs, and in 1916 the first tank, the Mark I, was unveiled. The Mark I was a crude machine, slow and lumbering, but it was a game changer on the battlefield. It had a top speed of 3.7 miles per hour and was armed with 2 6-pounders and 4 machine guns. The Mark I was followed by a series of increasingly sophisticated tanks. The Mark IV, for example, was faster, more manoeuvrable and better armed than its predecessor. It had a top speed of 4.5 miles per hour and was armed with 6 machine guns and 2 6-pounder guns. The tanks were a formidable weapon on the battlefield. They could cross trenches, crush barbed wire and provide cover for advancing troops. They could also take out enemy machine gun positions and artillery. The tanks were especially effective when used in conjunction with infantry and artillery.
The tank revolutionised warfare, and the impact was felt not just on the battlefield but also in society as a whole. The tanks were a symbol of technological process and military might. They gave the countries that possessed them a distinct advantage in war, and as a result tanks became a key component of military strategy.
The tanks had also a psychological impact on the enemy. They were terrifying machines that could crush anything in their path. The tanks instilled fear in the enemy, and their mere presence could cause the enemy to retreat. After World War I, they had become even more formidable. The tanks were faster, better armed and better protected. They could cross rivers, climb hills and operate in a variety of terrains. The tanks became a decisive weapon in the Second World War, and they played a crucial role in the defeat of the Axis powers.
The history of tanks is a testament to human integrity and innovation. The tanks were created out of necessity to break the stalemate of trench warfare during World War I. They revolutionised warfare and shaped the way wars are fought. Tanks continue to be a powerful weapon on the battlefield, and they are likely to remain so for the foreseeable future. The tanks have become a long way since their inception, and their evolution is a testament to the ongoing quest for military superiority.
That is a very optimistic view for that type of weapon, but some would not quite agree with this opinion. There are claims that these iconic armoured vehicles, which have dominated the battlefield for over a century, are increasingly being viewed as outdated relics of a bygone era. Despite their formidable appearance and impressive firepower, some are saying tanks are rapidly losing relevance in modern warfare. The main reason for this is the changing nature of warfare. As conflicts have evolved and technology has advanced, tanks have become increasingly vulnerable to new threats. For example, advances in anti-tank weaponry mean that tanks can now be destroyed by relatively low-tech weapons, like anti-tank guided missiles or improvised explosive devices. These have led to a decrease in the effectiveness of tanks, as they are often targeted by these types of weapons. Another factor that has contributed to the decline of trust and popularity of tanks is the rise of asymmetric warfare. In modern conflicts, opponents often use guerrilla tactics and rely on hit and run attacks rather than direct engagements. This makes tanks less effective, as they are designed for frontal assaults and sometimes can be cumbersome in areas with complex terrain. Additionally, tanks are expensive to produce and maintain, and they require a large support infrastructure, which makes them less practical for unconventional warfare. Moreover, advancements in technology have led to the development of more advanced and agile weapons systems, such as unmanned aerial vehicles and drones, which can easily evade tank fire and deliver devastating attacks. Tanks are also vulnerable to cyber attacks that can disable or disrupt their electronical systems, leaving them vulnerable to attacks.
But there are also people that would disagree with this. Despite the advancements in modern warfare technology, tanks remain a crucial component of any military force. Many experts, however, have argued that tanks are obsolete in modern warfare due to the rise of precision-guided missiles and other unmanned aerial vehicles. However, a closer look at recent conflicts reveals that tanks still play a vital role in modern warfare.
Firstly, tanks provide an essential ground force for conducting military operations. While UAVs and missiles are useful for surveillance and also destroying things, they cannot replace tanks when it comes to taking and actually holding ground. Tanks are heavily armoured, making them ideal for penetrating enemy defences and providing cover for infantry forces. Secondly, tanks are still a potent offence weapon. With their firepower, mobility and range, tanks can destroy enemy fortifications and armoured vehicles. In fact, tanks were used extensively during the recent conflicts in Syria, Yemen and Ukraine, where they proved to be a game changer on the battlefield.
Thirdly, tanks are adaptable and versatile. With the right modifications and upgrades, tanks can operate in different environments, including urban areas, deserts and even forests. They can also be equipped with different types of weaponry, making them effective against a range of various targets.
Let us now see how tanks have been adapted for modern warfare. The introduction of tanks during World War I brought a new and powerful force to the battlefield. However, as warfare has evolved, tanks have also evolved, as today's modern tanks are more advanced than ever before. Recent advancements in tank technology include the integrated of advanced sensors and communication systems, advanced armour made with composite materials and reactive armour, and an increased autonomy that allows tanks to operate without human drivers or even crew members. In modern warfare, tanks have had a variety of roles beyond their traditional use as direct fire weapons. Tanks are now used as support vehicles for ground troops, providing covering fire and suppressing enemy positions. They are also used in urban warfare, where their ability to operate autonomously and provide covering fire is particularly valuable. Additionally, tanks are used in counterinsurgency operations to patrol roads and other key infrastructure and engage enemy fighters who carry out sabotage attacks. Overall, tanks have become highly advanced autonomous weapon systems that play a crucial role in modern warfare. With continued advancements in technology, tanks will likely to play an important role in the military operations for years to come.
The use of tanks was a critical component of the military strategy employed by the Soviet Union and its allies in Eastern Europe during the Cold War. Tanks were used defensively to deter potential invasions from the West, as during the Cold War the Soviet Union and its allies were constantly preparing for a possible attack by NATO forces. Tanks played a critical role in this defence strategy, providing a strong barrier against potential ground invasions, and if attacked, tanks would be used to repel enemy forces and provide support for ground troops.
Tanks were also used to project power and influence. The Soviet Union, one of the world's leading producers of tanks, exported them to other communist states for the strength in their military capabilities. For example, North Vietnam received T-54 and T-55 tanks from the Soviet Union during the Vietnam War.
The Soviet Union provided tanks like this T-55 behind me to countries in the Middle East, Africa and Asia to expand their influence and counter Western powers. Tanks were and very much still are a hugely important geopolitical tool.
Tanks have been a crucial weapon of choice in many Middle Eastern conflicts as well, from the Iran-Iraq war to the ongoing civil war in Syria. One of the prime uses of tanks in the Middle Eastern conflicts is to support ground defences. In the Iran-Iraq war, tanks were used to break through enemy lines and support the infantry as they advance. Tanks such as the T-72 and M60 Patton were used extensively during this conflict, with both sides employing hundreds of tanks in their offences. Similarly, in the Gulf War, tanks played a crucial role in the US-led coalition's ground offences against Saddam Hussein's forces. The M1 Abrams tank in particular was praised for its accuracy, speed and firepower in this conflict. Tanks have also been used in Middle Eastern conflicts to lay siege to cities and towns. In the civil war in Syria, tanks have been used to cut off supply lines and isolate rebel-held areas. For example, during the siege of Homs in 2012, Syrian government forces used tanks to encircle the city and cut off supplies for the rebels. Similarly, in the conflict in Yemen, the Saudi-led coalition has used tanks to lay siege to the port city of
Hodeidah.
But let's clear away any doubts about whether or not the tank is obsolete by looking at the recent developments on the Ukrainian front. Since the beginning of this war in February last year, tanks have become one of the main items on the list of weapons that Ukraine has constantly asked for from its Western allies. This is to counter Russia, a very powerful opponent that has thousands of tanks in its arsenal.
As we speak, on both warring sides, massive amounts of tanks and armoured fighting vehicles are currently being amassed on the Ukrainian battlefield. All types of tanks and armoured vehicles are arriving on the Ukrainian side, from those of Soviet production to the more modern ones such as the German Leopards, the American Abrams M1 and also the British Challengers. However, Russia is also ramping up its tank production capabilities as well.
The fact that Western countries are sending their tanks to Ukraine to help, but also to see how they perform in combat, refutes the claim that tanks are old and outdated weapons. We can say with certainty that tanks are not obsolete for modern warfare. Now don't get me wrong, they may face new challenges for emerging technologies and they may not be the powerhouse they used to be, but their versatility, firepower and adaptability make them an essential component of any modern military force. As George S. Patton once said, the tank is the king of the battlefield and is still the weapon of decision. But anyway guys, I hope you have enjoyed the video. My name is Alex Garner. If you have enjoyed it, please do like and subscribe and I'll see you in the next one.